I'm here to talk to you about the care and keeping of project managers. The project managers I'm specifically talking about today are capital project managers who are in the public service industry. It could be really any project manager, and honestly, it could be even beyond. This is pretty much care and keeping of staff and people who work, and that it requires a lot of people. So the presentation is going to be including results from a survey that I did from PP&R, Portland Parks and Recreation. These were capital project managers. I was able to ask some questions, and their expertise represents over 177 years of industry experience. At Portland Parks, we have 3 capital teams, approximately $250 million in active projects. A fourth of those are deferred because we have more work than we can handle. So a lot of the overwhelm and the challenges that were discussed, that will be discussed today, are very real in our organization right now. Got it. Just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Leah Espinosa. The Bureau of Parks and Recreation is part of the City of Portland. I have an educational background with an MBA and a workplace psychology degree. I'm a lead for employee resource groups at the city, specifically City Disability Network. I myself live with a disability, and I am a survivor of burnout, which we're going to be talking about today. A quick fun fact about me is I'm a concert level pianist, so it'd probably be more comfortable if a piano was on stage. It just wouldn't really be applicable to the conversation today. I guess I could sing it. We could try. The thing I like to do is encourage bringing your whole self to work, and that's why I share about myself. So there's a lot of benefits and challenges to project management. The understanding of the context behind these are important for us to be able to develop strategies for recruiting, retaining these professionals. When it comes to benefits, the project managers enjoy a balance of creative freedom, problem solving, community impact, and collaborative teamwork, especially learning from the industry professionals in specific types of areas of interest. Many of us know the feeling of seeing a great project come to fruition. At PP&R, that usually looks like a really cool playground that's inclusive, that all the children in the whole region just tend to come around. In fact, they love our playground so much that they end up causing some operations and maintenance earlier than expected because they will put a lot of wear and tear on our parks. When it comes to challenges and stressors that project managers face, there can be quite a high stress environment that's caused. Some of the key challenges that PMs face include struggle to meet expectations with limited resources, complex processes, and often ambiguous guidance. We've all heard of the government red tape, the slow processes that it takes to get things done. This is no different at parks. We have issues with pressures from political directions, scope, schedule, and budget, permitting, procurement, land use, especially collaborating across agencies. Now, collaboration was one of the benefits of project management, but it's also one of the stressors, right? Because we often have different kinds of stakeholder groups, different funding sources, and sometimes our projects are going to be closely related or in addition to other infrastructure projects happening, and they're just trying to throw a park in on top of everything else going on. This can lead to a lot of isolation by the PMs because they have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders. They're really coordinating a lot across different needs, different groups, and some of the times it can lead to unrealistic expectations, including just figure it out kind of model. When PP&R project managers were asked how well they have been able to manage their work-life balance, you can see that on a scale of 1 to 10, most of the responses were a 6. So this shows some moderate level of balance between work and life, but there's clearly room for improvement. Another survey question asked if they had ever experienced long-lasting stress, mental health challenges and or burnout in this field of work, and 78% of the respondents were yes. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be this field of work specifically. If we were to ask across this room if you've ever experienced long-lasting stress or mental health challenges or burnout from your places of employment, there's probably a similar response. Some of the symptoms of burnout include exhaustion, where many PMs will feel physically and mentally drained from their workload, cynicism and self-doubt. Persistent stress can lead to feelings of detachment and reduced confidence, and the persistent piece is the part where they can't just take a weekend or overcome what's burdening them very easily, and these can lead to reduced job satisfaction, with less motivation and struggle with project enthusiasm. So here's some ideas on how organizations can improve the support for their PMs. The first thing that PMs appreciate is having flexibility, structured support, and realistic expectations. It's important for managers, when they're having check-ins with staff, to ask questions and to be observant of what's really happening. So asking questions very specifically: are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you able to manage this okay? When's your next planned vacation or time off? The being aware of red flags or extra levels of stress. There was one example that I had where I do spend reporting for all of our capital projects, and the numbers got off on one of the reports once, and the PM opened the report and they thought that they were millions of dollars in the hole very suddenly, and they freaked out. They were thinking that they were going to lose their job, that they were not responsible in their employment, and they called me, and I was like, why would that be your first like assumption? I mean, you're a really good project manager, you know your expenses. It was just a mathematical error. I was able to fix it, but I also had to walk them off the ledge because this was really, really stressful for them. And sometimes those kinds of reactions and responses can be signs that other things are going on. It's important to take assessment of resources and options that your organization offers. So these can look like offloading administrative duties, targeted training opportunities, employee assistance programs through HR programs, as well as encouraging participation in employee resource and affinity groups. And I want you to think about the kinds of resources that are offered in your own organizations. And if you're not as familiar with these resources, just be curious and find out when you get back to the office. Another thing we can do is to work on culture change. Culture change has been talked about a little bit today in the other presentations. A couple of the key areas that I've listed here is to celebrate work-life balance and achievements. It's not very common to take a minute in a team meeting to say, good job, Sandra, for taking a vacation last week, even though your project is in active construction. That was probably really stressful. How did it go? Like, did you have the support you needed? Do you feel rested? Like, is it working? Being able to have these kinds of open conversations in the team setting can be a way to change culture. Establishing open feedback channels is another way. Developing platforms for open communication is going to give valuable insights for continual improvement. Setting realistic expectations and understanding. So one of these, the reason we keep saying expectations over and over is because sometimes they're really unrealistic. Like saying, oh, they're really good at this, so I'm going to give them another project just like that, even though they already have too much of a workload. And the expectations is sometimes so top-down driven that it's hard for the PM to explain like why that's unreasonable. And then another culture area is to prioritize projects, to restructure work plans, to make sure that we're not causing more inefficiency by changing things in a way that isn't manageable. So culture change, it can help reduce discrimination and ableism as well. So in the past models of workplace and employment, if somebody wasn't able to step it up or have their work, up to snuff, you could say, then they would just be like dismissed or like gotten rid of. And in a more inclusive environment of these the opportunities that the year 2024 gives us, we can actually like take a step back, find out what's really going on, find new and creative ways for staff to thrive. Remember that when feedback is given, staff will expect a response. So if you open up those feedback channels, be careful not to act shocked if the feedback isn't positive or the staff end up airing any grievances. Don't make promises that you don't intend to keep. Don't pry into personal circumstances or make staff feel bad about being honest. There can also be resistance to change, constraints in funding, and opportunities for change. And anything that is going to be changes across the organization should be adopted fully and consistent so that it doesn't just make things more messy. But if the barriers to change are addressed and overcome, there are both short-term and long-term benefits, and it's also easier to support existing staff rather than to train new staff in the field. Another area is to support, encourage staff to support themselves. So we just talked about a bunch of things the organization can do, and this is a slide that shows some things that the PM can do for their own needs. It's important to be able to validate their own individual and unique needs as people to care for themselves during their years of employment. They could build the skills to speak up about their needs, to be brave, set boundaries, and find community. This is going to help maintain balance, reduce their stress, and find more fulfillment. This is a much more sustainable approach to work. And everyone can do this. We can think about what our own needs are, and we can also think about our coping options, as well as which ones are maybe a little more unhealthy or unsustainable, and try to make steps towards making progress. We also got some advice for PMs who are less experienced and are overwhelmed in the industry. The important thing is to recognize your limits, seek help when needed, maintain work-life boundary, have patience, and break things down into manageable steps. Now, this may not be intuitive, like some people need to be walked through and have good examples. And so it's important to have support from peers and have realistic outlook on their goals. A lot of people might think, I'm not able to do this. I can't do it at this level, and they can start feeling really down about that. They can learn from the senior PMs about what's worth stressing over and what's not. Although I will be cautious and say sometimes seasoned PMs have kind of hardened themselves to the industry. And so it's no excuse to be a jerk or be mean. There's a lot of times when, especially with emails to administrative staff, things can get spicy. So it's important to keep that graceful. Rarely do effective approaches lie with only the efforts of the organization or the PM themselves. Instead, organizational systems and tailored support is more effective when used cooperatively. So here's 3 ideas for cooperation in making changes. Survey findings on the importance of receiving flexible and tailored support were quite high, with responses from 8 to 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. So this means that the PMs really strongly valued having flexible, tailored support. Does this mean that they can do whatever they want? No, we're still going to be having to get the projects done without compromising the needs of the organization. But what we can do is we can create a strengths-based approach. So the little icon that I picked was a hurdle. And so some people will have different sized hurdles based on their own circumstances. And they're going to create and tailor progress in the way that works best for them. The second one is to standardize processes and have consistency. This is happening in tandem. So we are creating flexibility options, but we're also standardizing as much as we can. The importance of this is to provide minimum expectations, to train up new staff equitably, to encourage subject matter expertise, to ensure compliance. Libraries of standards can help ensure quality, and it can also provide clear and strong examples of best practices for PMs to follow. The last one is to enhance team collaboration and peer support. So in my organization, a lot of project management is an individual PM taking on kind of the world. Sometimes other agencies are different. They have a team-based approach. So one of the things that PP&R staff wanted was more of a team-based approach. There's a lot of benefits to that, but just definitely sharing responsibility, being able to tag in and tag out of the project when leave needs to be taken, as well as helping to build confidence and learning opportunities for junior staff. It's also important to work across organizations and across departments to solve problems. A lot of times at parks, we'll run into something that's really specific and kind of puzzling. We were building a elevated tree walk, and they were putting these pylons in the ground, and the concrete that was being poured was just going into the earth because there was a lot of cobblestones. So they had to go out into the geological region and find other folks who had been doing similar work to solve these kinds of problems. Identify support gaps. So when we're doing our feedback channels, we're gathering feedback. We're finding out what's going on. What are we missing? How can we better support staff? Staff typically appreciate having their voices heard. They want to feel listened to and respected. And managers should be trained to observe without bias when staff are burdened, disengaged, or struggling with performance issues. But what is missing? It's also important to research and look for actual blind spots in the organization, things that are influencing the workplace culture and work practices that might be making it harder for the organization to be inclusive, culturally sensitive, or accommodating for folks who might struggle in silence or face systemic barriers or who are marginalized. If we want to attract and retain staff, we need to be able to treat staff more equitably by looking into the blind spots. And it's not always possible for needs to be met. So when such cases, at least acknowledging and listening with empathy about things that PM would want will plant the seeds for eventual resources. In a world of scope, schedule, and budget, with millions and sometimes billions on the line and hundreds of thousands of community members scrutinizing project outcomes, what is the most important thing to focus on? In the world of sustainability goals and dismantling of supremacy culture and oppressive history, what do good and sustainable business practices look like? Well, when we're so focused and involved in the needs of the project, it's also imperative that we are aware of the people behind the project. We need to humanize. Earlier, we learned that burnout was exhaustion, cynicism, and lack of satisfaction. These can also be signs and symptoms of depression, which is the #1 leading cause of suicide across the world. So when a PM is saying, I can't do this anymore, they might not just be talking about the project. We are forced to take a step back to realize that our efforts towards project completion, sustainability, and equity should also lead to the outcome of a PM who isn't so burned out that they're on their last desperate threads of life. So the key takeaways here in conclusion, to address mental health and stress management, ensure that PMs have access to resources, train managers in wellness and burnout awareness so that they can recognize signs and engage proactively, make organizational changes to better manage PM workloads and avoid unrealistic expectations, empower staff to make requests and adjustments to their work, reduce disruptions, promote a culture of work-life balance. Implementing these recommendations requires significant organizational commitment, but the benefits are clear: higher staff satisfaction, a healthier workplace culture, and better project outcomes. These will save time and money. People must be made a priority, and when that puzzle piece is in place, all the other pieces of project management will have the best chance of successfully falling into places around them and through them. So let's include staff health and well-being as a key initiative within the world of project management. And by prioritizing the well-being, we will reach better excellence in built assets in our community. And more importantly, we will pave a way for personal legacies and pride of people who will shine just as long and bright throughout our communities. So that concludes my presentation. I do have a full report available of what I shared today. I'm also available to come and do this presentation if it was helpful for any organizations that might have interest. You can connect with me by email or LinkedIn, and I'll be in the back as well. Thank you.